All right, folks, thanks. Jeff Griffiths, the head of the Talent Pipeline Management Initiative through the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, a competency geek and a management consultant for my sins. Um, and just quick, before I get into this, quickly type it into the chat if you have any clue what talent pipeline management even is, because that'll frame what I'm going to say next. If you know what it is, say yep. If you don't know what it is, say no, and we'll just give a rough idea of what we're dealing with. Aha, someone didn't know it was outside the US. Guess what? It is. We're in Canada now. It's a long time coming, but here we are. All right. So TPM in a nutshell, it's demand pull, employer-led workforce generation that back maps using supply chain techniques or supply chain principles, back maps jobs required into specific learning programs or talent pathways. It's been around since 2014 in the US. I've been trying to get it into Canada since 2018. I was successful finally last year, and we have a full-blown provincial supported TPM initiative now in Alberta to actually get employer engagement and demand pull on this, which is really cool. So flip slides, Andy. So what exactly is it? There's three steps: demand planning, supply analysis, where figure out what you need, figure out where the current supply can come from, and then activate partnerships with your supply chain in order to optimize the flow of talent into your business or your industry. And then a final piece is the continuous improvement feedback mechanisms that are built into the system. That's talent pipeline management in 10 words or less. Next slide, Andy. So TPM uses these six strategies. First thing is getting the employers to the table. That's always the hardest part. Figure out what they need in strategies 2 and 3, which is really, really, really detailed. How many, what flavor of people, and when, and then getting into the real granular level on what exactly it is they need to be able to do. What's the evidence that they can do it? What specific qualifications, certifications, licenses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Breaking that out as closely as possible. Figuring out where they come from now, the talent flows, either internal or external to the organization, and then establishing a talent supply chain. That's from the TPM as it's normally applied, so the demand pull from the employer side. What got me thinking about this, though, was actually it was a conversation that Serge Revet and I were having with a professor from the States a couple of epochs ago, where the professor from an engineering program in the States was arguing with Serge and I, which is always a bad thing to do, that they still had to test knowledge, they still had to do all this. And Serge and I maintained, of course, that, in many cases you didn't. And then this was also a conversation that I had with Japman's boss, Bob Smart, probably a decade ago now, about testing versus observed competency. And so next slide. This is the principle that I started thinking about in terms of how you can back TPM and do it in the other direction. My point is that the knowledge that you're testing is necessary in order to perform the task, and the ability to perform the task means the knowledge is there, whether it can be articulated or not. And I think that's an important principle. So if you look at strategies 3 and 4, where we're analyzing where it is, what it is people can do, where it is those talent streams currently come from, what that flow of talent and talent development looks like. It makes sense. If it works in one direction, it actually works in the other direction too. So when you look at the detailed model, flip 2 slides up, Andy. I've blown past now. Give one more. So how do we use it for as a tool in RPL? Um, I think there's a gap in the way we apply this now. In many cases, RPL is applied from people who are not working who want to be working. I think there's a way to apply it more universally. Flip the next slide, Andy. So where you have if people are already doing the work, how do you back map that into the system and use it so that individuals can get recognition and potential career advancement and higher levels of degrees in learning? And I ask this question because, my old man, my dad, who was a tin basher, but at the end of his career was effectively doing the work of a structural engineer. Um, Unrecognized, of course, but over a period of many, 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 many years working in industry, had acquired all of those engineering skills. And he was supervising job sites for the construction of structural steel buildings, doing the work that a field engineer would be doing. But in the end, he's just a tin basher. He's just a tradesman, and I think that's a misnomer. I think that there's a problem with that. So if you look at the dynamics, the missing piece is the verification of competency on the employer end and how that maps back into the system. And when you get the really, really, really rigorous competency frameworks that come out of a TPM, you now have a mechanism. Next slide, Andy. To map out a role, document the evidence that a current worker can actually perform that role, back map that into course outcomes and the underlying learning, recognizing by principle from the beginning that's, if you can do it and the knowledge is required to do it, then being able to do it, it demonstrates that the knowledge exists. Aligning it to courses, presenting those cases, documenting it that way, and then institutionalize the process so you can grant higher level or equivalent credentials at any level within a qualifications framework based on the work that people actually do and are competent at doing, demonstrably competent at doing, because they're being paid to do it by an employer. Employers generally don't pay for stuff that's not done properly. So by doing that, I think, flip the next slide, you can address some of the fit and misalignment issues that exist right now, where it does two things. TPM establishes whether that particular credential is in fact valid as a proxy for the role, but it also works in the other direction. And so I think there's excuse me. I think that's the essence here. As we are developing TPM here in Alberta, we're working closely. One of our partners on the talent task force is the Alberta Post-Secondary Network. So they're plugged in every step of the way in what we're doing and how this is going to create better two-way dialogue up and down that talent pipeline for equivalency in both directions. So it's really kind of an exciting step. This is a very, let's say, practical framework and a practical nuts and bolts approach that makes the often an esoteric argument about, where does something fit and how you can credit work and life experience and that into the system. This provides a really rigorous framework for doing that, and which is approachable from both ends of that talent pipeline. So, well, last slide, almost last slide, right? So one more, sorry. One more slide. There we go. There we go. Good. So if TPM gives employers that structured voice in defining what it is they actually need done and which programs will provide those competencies in terms of qualifying the proxy or qualifying the supply chain, the competency mapping then allows back mapping into prior learning assessment as well in the opposite direction. The program fit analysis that we undertake with employers in TPM, it turns that into a useful decision-making tool in both directions. And I think it provides valuable feedback to the institutions in terms of degree of fit of program into eventual roles. And also provides that pathway to other potential places where those people can land within the economy. I mentioned earlier some of the cool stuff that Vometric's doing in the latest, greatest version that Bob Smart demoed to me a few weeks ago, where it's mapping evidence against multiple taxonomies and looking at all of those possible pathways now that may open up as a result of demonstrated skill, which I think is really, really cool. It's I saw Vometric's tool about 10 years ago when it was still early and clunky, and I thought I'd seen God. I've seen it again recently, and yeah, it's a better God than it was before. And in any case, I think the whole idea of this is to connect the supply side and the demand side in the economy as opposed to as it relates to skill and talent, and take the friction out of the system and allow people to move to where they should be, as opposed to creating barriers that prevent them from getting as far, the most economic advantage they can out of the things that they've learned, regardless of where they've learned them. That's it. I am done. Open to questions. Last slide. Need to talk to me. That's my, that's me. Questions. Come on. I know you don't all agree with me.
I got one
There's
for
a
you, Jeff.
question there from Dan. Yeah, I mean, and that's always been a problem, Dan, this notion of what you really do versus learning outcomes, because competencies in the real world aren't learning outcomes, right? Um, and that's part of what we do when we're looking at the establishment of the supply chains and the mapping and the backflow, is trying to understand, is this learning outcome? What is it in terms of competency? Where is that gap? How close is that fit? And we'll work with employers to figure that out. And now you start understanding the difference between the two. And like that's always been a problem, where the institutions talk in terms of learning outcomes, and the employer talks about getting things done and the value that's added.
Touching back to Taruna's presentation, there's a real need to be a translator,
Yes.
ambassador at that interface, because the two worlds don't naturally find each other and mesh.
No. No, and I mean, if anybody here sick and tired of hearing employers whine that they can't find the skills they need? Yeah, me too. Anybody here sick and tired of hearing the schools whine that they can't get employers to engage in order to improve program? Yeah, me too. And the problem is that the students are stuck in the middle of all of that. All they want is a job, right? They just want to move out of their mom's basement. I think the one advantage that TPM has is it creates that two-way dialogue, and it starts acting and making that clear that learning outcome does not equal job performance.
Yeah.
And in the other way as well. I mean, job performance doesn't necessarily equal learning outcome, but as long as we can start having that conversation, now we can start taking the friction out of the system and turning this into a proper dialogue.
A framework like TPM can put PSIs and employers in the same room, and maybe it helps them find each other in terms of what they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, the talent pipeline management, I mean, we always start with the employers, because they need to have leadership and ownership of this, because it's actually aimed at solving their problem.
Yeah.
You find that there's a mad scramble to get in the door, usually from the post-secondaries and the training providers, and having the vendor in the room when we're having those initial conversations is usually a bad idea, because it changes the nature of the conversation. that being said, our organization, I mean, we are communicating all the time with the training providers on what we're finding out, and so they're aware of what's going on, but they're not influencing the discussion and the conversation until we get to the point in the value stream where we're actually trying to match program to job requirements. And now it's a really rich conversation because we're actually looking at the specifics to solve a problem. Um, and yeah, so there was another question about do we offer this to post-secondaries? I've briefed every post-secondary in Alberta on this. And I did another orientation session last week. I had some folks from SATE in the room. So, you know, everybody's aware of what we're up to. And I make sure through the Alberta Post-Secondary Network that they're clear on what we're doing. The question on do employers appreciate RPL? My thought is, as an employer, I don't care how many credits you were granted on equivalency or through RPL. If the degree is actually a valid proxy for the work I have to do, all I care is if you have one, right? You can argue whether or not the degree is a valid diploma or parchment or whatever is a valid proxy. But the if how you got it doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they sprinkled magic pixie dust on your head. If you've got the equivalency and you can do the work, that's all I care about. Serge, you got a question?
Yes. How about employers delivering their own, maybe not certification, qualification, but so the dialogue is not just between the institution providing certificate qualification, but also the employer themselves. And then to have a dialogue at the credential level, you could have what I call semi-formal recognition at the employer level, formal recognition at the branch level or national level. But then there is some kind of formalization of what people are capable to do within the industry.
Yeah, in fact, we're having those discussions with certain segments of the industry where they're not actually well served by the existing programs. So as an example, I'm talking in the construction sector here in Alberta. So you have, you know, like the home builders always get slagged because they don't support apprenticeship. And I would argue that the apprenticeship system doesn't support the home builders because unless you're an electrician or a plumber, you're probably not a licensed tradesperson working on a residential construction project here in Alberta. And there is no clear pathway. So the discussions we're having with the home builders is, well, why don't you just create an industry-led credential that's perfectly suited to the requirements that you actually have for home construction, recognize it at an industry level. And if that's the case, if it's not a credential that like electrician or plumber, which are where it's a hard requirement, they're mandatory or compulsory trades. Design an industry level standard, design what that looks like, evaluate it in the field, and then you don't have to ask the government's permission to do this. You can do this at an industry or an employer level. You know, and so those discussions are happening now, where they didn't happen before, and I think that's really good. And you know, and then how you match industry level or employer level credentials with other systems is that there's the rub. The problem is that having that dialogue is difficult if you don't have the data to back it up. This is a tool that helps us get the data that allows the employers to make those decisions and back up what they're doing. You know, and again, I'll lean on Vametric and Japman, feel free to jump in on this, but when you have valid evidence to a standard that's been established by the industry, now it's defensible. And with the systems that exist now where you have permanent recording of what that looked like, now you're not relying on a piece of paper that says you were competent. You've got actual evidence that's been verified by a you know, by a qualified evaluator to prove that you actually did have that competence. And you know, that's, I think, you know, many years ago we didn't we avoided this stuff. We went with really you know, concrete proxies through the education system. The technology exists now that we don't necessarily need to do that unless it's, unless that's the best way to do it.
Mhm.
And
So how does it speak in favor of developing the recognition function in the organization? For example, also to have trained assessors within the organization itself.
yeah, well, in fact, we did a total sidebar, but we did this in an organization last year, and we were measuring the impact of competent workers on safety records.
Mhm.
And the problem was, how do you determine they're competent? Well, we actually built that assessment function and the recognition function into the organization at a supervisory level, and trained all of the frontline supervisors how to assess competency in the field. And they've now gone, I mean, you don't like talking about a shutout in the third period, but they've gone well over 1 million man hours now without a lost time, because they're actually assessing competency and only letting people work who are competent to do the work, and then providing upgrade training and skills, skills enhancement for the ones that aren't. And they've got a perfect safety record as a result of it in an industry that usually puts someone in the hospital every week. So, I mean, the evidence is there, it works.
And people who have been trained can become tutors later. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm trying to contact the next presenter, and I don't think the next presenter's in the link. Maybe who knows? Frank, are you there?
If not, we keep talking.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I'm trying to give him a call right now. It's actually another one that we're doing together, and I'm trying to give him a call right now just to make sure. I know he had a medical procedure yesterday, but I'm just double checking it.
Yeah. Do you feel capable of presenting by yourself?
Yeah. Sorry, give me 30 seconds, then I'll see if I can get him, and then otherwise, yeah, we can do.
Don't worry, we'll still keep on talking.
Okay, yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is it's a really interesting dialogue that a few years ago we would not have had, and in a lot of industries now we're having that dialogue. The tools exist, the understanding of the differences between formal and informal learning, and the value of learning wherever it happens. I think. It's really cool times, and that's why I asked about the standard earlier, Sev, because I've applied the stuff that I cribbed from the Brits when I developed the internal certification at Carey Steel. But if there's a good, valid, rigorous international standard on how and what this looks like, perfect. Let's adopt that.
It's just French, and it is an experimental standard. It's not.
C'est bon, je parle français, j'ai pas de problème.
Oui. Je sais. C'est purement expérimental. Hein, c'est une norme expérimentale qui sera révisée de 3 ans.
It would be nice to look at what we did, compare it to what's in that standard, and see where, if any, the gaps were in the approach that we took internally within the organization,
and what we can use ourselves. So, yeah.
So anyway, any other questions? Sorry, I'm babbling on here. Anything? Have I completely babbled?
Okay, I think. Thank you so much, Jeff.